All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of BrewFOs. Uh, today, oh yeah, do you have drinks with you? Oh, cheers. Today,
Cheers.
cheers. Today, my guests are Stan Milford and Jon Dover. Stan, I believe, retired as sergeant, and Jon as a lieutenant, if I'm correct. Um, Jon Dover had over 31 years in law enforcement and Stan, I believe, was it over 23 years?
Yes.
Okay, I'm getting some of it right there. Both of them were Rangers, federal Rangers for the Navajo Nation, which spans over 27,000 miles, which is incredible. This is a huge area. I don't think people can really comprehend. I believe you've said before in some of your interviews that that's the size of West Virginia. Is that correct?
That is
Yeah.
correct.
Okay. Um, Stan worked a lot with SWAT and special weapons training. I know that Jon also was trained in SWAT as well. But if you guys could kind of go a bit behind with your background to let others know and people watching, that would be great. I was introduced to your story through Unsolved Mysteries, season 3, episode 5, called Paranormal Rangers.
Yes.
Um, and it was incredible. It got me really interested in your story and just how you guys are such badasses and so credible with all your training, with forensic evidence, archaeological evidence. I mean, help me out here, guys. So how about let's start with you, Jon. Can you tell us a little bit about you?
Okay. I started law enforcement in 1980.
Okay.
My academy was 6 months long. I had to be certified in the state of New Mexico, state of Arizona, Navajo Nation, and with the federal government under the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So a lot of extensive training. After that, I continued my training. We like to say that it takes about 3 years to train a ranger. So I was a specialist in archaeological crimes. Um, I was a specialist in high angle technical rescue. I was trained and licensed as a EMT basic, and I was a class 3 technical accident investigator, state of Arizona, and
Wow.
Arizona operational first responder and hazmat, co-commander of the SWAT team, and boy, it just keeps going. There's just so many different things.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. Thank you for that. And Stan, what about you? Could you go a little bit into your background as well?
Sure. I graduated the U.S. Indian Police Academy in 1997 at what is known as FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, that's located down in Artesia, New Mexico. At that training facility, you have uh, U.S. Air Marshals and Border Patrol, INS. So you have a lot of different other federal programs that are training there. And so I graduated in 1997. I at the time, though, before that, I was attending the University of Arizona, and I was contacted by one of the directors of one of the departments up here on the reservation, and they were needing a ranger to for a Monument Valley ranger position, and they asked me if I'd come back and go to the police academy, which I did, and so like you said, 23 years. The rangers provide enforcement over all of the natural resources of the Navajo Nation. You know, your forestry, your fish and wildlife, um, um, even the livestock and agriculture,
Okay.
the parks areas, the scenic areas. So it's a lot of different um, areas of enforcement. Probably, um, probably one of the law enforcement agencies that covers more areas than any other agency in the United States, um, and that includes uh, the enforcing the criminal code at times, um, your public safety codes, um, running radar and those kind of things. And like me and John, um, being a part of the uh, special operations or SWAT and drug enforcement, a lot of different things over the years, and a part of the special projects unit, which led to the investigation of these cases that would be termed, paranormal or supernatural, that kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think some people when they hear a federal ranger, they might not know what to think and what you guys actually did and what you guys actually do. But I've heard you state before that the paranormal part of it was probably 1% of the cases you guys were involved with. And
It was a very small portion of what we did, but um, over the years, over about 11 or so years, it comprised of a number of different uh, types of paranormal phenomena: UFOs, Bigfoot, extraterrestrial, witchcraft, and shape shifting, or skinwalkers, as they're known. A lot of hauntings, a lot of different things. So,
yeah, so let's get into that with uh just just the fact, like, your guys' training is it's so extensive. Um and um it's you know when people bring up something paranormal, if someone brings up a UFO or a skinwalker, which a lot of people might not understand what a skinwalker is, but we can go into that a little bit. But you know, it's you guys are very credible. And again, like, just what you're trained in and how you're going to write down a certain case or log a case, and like, you guys are very evidence based. So when you see something or investigate something, um, I just think you guys have a little more clout than most people would have. So that's a big reason why I wanted to talk to you guys too. I just, you know, I've um I've watched a lot of your interviews, and it's hard because I don't want to ask the same questions, but I realize there's going to be people that don't know a lot about you and what you've done. And I urge people to go watch that Paranormal Rangers episode if you have Netflix. Again, it's season 3, episode 5, and that'll go really into depth. But there's just certain things there's some questions I want to ask that yeah, it might not be uh, the average person might not be caught up to it. But let's try to go a little bit through. I know you guys have explained this time and time again, but maybe Jon, you can kind of help explain what some of your cases. But like if someone doesn't know what a skinwalker is, like, what would a skinwalker to someone that doesn't know? Like, what is a skinwalker?
Okay, in the United States, you have several different types of shapeshifter in different parts of the country. Sometimes they're known as shapeshifters. They're known as wendigos, rakes. So you have a lot of different typology, especially within Indian tribes. Within the United States, there are 573 recognized Indian tribes.
Wow.
You get up into Canada and the First Nations, there's another 500 plus Indian tribes up there, that were original inhabitants of this country. So all of them have some uh, paranormal traditions that are just, baked into the culture. They've been there ever since time immemorial. One of these is the shapeshifter. Now, along with that, we've come to find out that they have shapeshifters in Australia. They have them in Africa. They have them in Indonesia. It's a worldwide phenomenon. So the one we speak to is the Navajo witchcraft or Navajo shapeshifter, which is called a skinwalker. The reason they're called skinwalkers is they actually use the skin of an animal to affect a change to that particular animal. So they can be seen as coyotes. They can change into birds, like owls or ravens or whatever kind of bird they want to change into. Um, I had one case where a woman told me that she was driving down the road. She saw a man standing on the side of the road. The top half was a man, and from the waist down was a kangaroo. So somewhere along the line, this guy got a hold of a hide and was able to affect a change into a kangaroo. We just spoke with a guy recently that told us that he ran into one right outside where he lived, and the thing had the body of a man, the head of a horse, and the hands and the feet were hooves. So pretty creepy if you think about it.
Yeah, so
Um,
John, have you ever seen anything like that, or like what do you do with an investigation like that? Because someone will tell you that, and you go, "Whoa, that sounds spooky," and the person will probably be really terrified, but and you're taking notes from them. You're probably like, where were like what time was it? Like where did you see it? Like, but like in your head, are you kind of like, is this person crazy, or is this something we've been trying to explain that's real, or like can you go into
well,
that?
if you work out here long enough, you understand that these things are real. So far, I've known the identity of six that were doing this stuff, and those are kind of like having an ace in your back pocket. You keep them close at hand if you ever need them. Um, in order to become one, there's actually two different ways. One, you can want to become one and seek out somebody that might know something about it. In order to become one, you have to sacrifice or have somebody killed who you love dearly.
Oh, geez.
So it takes great sacrifice plus homicide. Little kids, infants, maybe somebody in your family that you care dearly about will be taken, kidnapped basically and killed, and and then their body will be used in a ceremony. You have another way. Say you're a kid and you're out playing with one of your friends, and you run into a cave or an embankment that's been hollowed out underneath or something like that, and there's people in there that are painted up with skins on them, and they give you a choice. They say either we kill you now or you join us and we'll teach you how to do this stuff, but you have to give up somebody that you love in your family.
Oh, wow.
And so one way or the other, they're going to die or they're going to join. And then you have people that dabble in it. They learn how to shapeshift, but there's a whole, uh, I guess, learning process to this where you're taught poisons, you're taught a whole bunch of other things. And so it's real serious stuff. Um, so we've dealt with this for quite a number of years ever since we first started working, and uh, a lot of officers won't even deal with it. They'll just say, we can't help you. That we don't have nothing to do with this. We've talked to people that have shot them. In one case, the person was being dragged out of the brush. It looked like a coyote being dragged by the hind leg, and the leg turned into a human leg in the guy's hand. So we have things like that. So they're pretty prevalent out here and pretty frightening. We will not take any film crews in to go look for them or to find them or anything like that. We've had people nearly killed looking into this subject. So we just refused to even take anyone in.
So that's so strictly for you wouldn't. It's not like we don't want people to come film because, like, it's not there. It's more like we want people don't want people to come film for their own protection.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We had one guy that came out to film, and we had a skinwalker encounter, and he suddenly got sick afterwards. He stayed sick for a year and a half. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with him, and he nearly died, uh, probably several times. And finally, over a period of a year and a half, got better.
Whoa.
So we don't want that to happen to anybody else.
Yeah.
Uh, so they can affect these changes in animals. They can also take DNA from people, your fingernail clippings, your hair, your sweat, your defecation, and use that DNA to change into something that looks like you, and thereby approach other people and deliver poison or deliver harm of some kind. And they're clueless, or if they think about it, they say, "That was so and so that that I know." And so little children here are taught you don't leave your fingernail clippings. You don't you cover up your pee. Um, you don't leave sweaty clothes outside. You clean your hairbrush out. Things like that.
So I know that uh you grew up sorry, John, you grew up in Los Angeles, and Stan, you grew up in Oklahoma, right?
That's right.
Well, um, when I was young, my mother and father separated, and me and my older sister were taken back to Oklahoma, where my mother's from.
Okay.
And so between there and where my father is from on the Navajo reservation, we kind of grew up between those two. My father would bring me and my sister back out to the reservation during the summertime on summer break. And so kind of back and forth, you know.
Yeah, so
Um,
so you guys I know growing up on and off or visiting, did you guys learn them from your families
Oh,
about
sure.
like warnings about skinwalkers or
oh yeah,
other phenomenon, you know?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
We were told about it and warned about it. And where I used to spend my summers, there were caves up in the mountains that we were always saying, "Let's go up there and look." Let's see if we can find a cave. But the older people there, they really got after us for doing that. For
Yeah.
even talking about it.
Yeah. I understand too, in some of your investigations, you would only be able to go to a certain place if you could talk to a medicine man first, right? Is that and he would tell you like the place is sacred and how to approach it or
Well, that was in because I was doing archaeological resource crimes
okay.
as a specialty. I had to get with medicine men first and find out how to approach these places, what to do and what not to do. They basically said you're protected because that's your job. But they gave me a whole list of do's and don'ts while I was on these places.
Yeah, and that's to protect you and also to protect whatever's there as well, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And Stan, I I've heard your story, but if you can just talk a little bit about you actually saw a skinwalker with your own eyes when you were younger
yeah.
too, right? You were a teenager, I believe, or
No, this was after high school and
okay,
around college. You know, my college
college
years. And,
years. Okay.
yeah, but yeah, I did witness one of these things in its animal form. I had gone to the movies one night real late, and there's a movie based on a Stephen King book, and um, I went to watch that movie, and it got out around midnight, and an elderly individual asked if I was going back to the same town that I was from, and I said, "Yeah, I can give you a ride." So this individual, I gave them a ride. They were they asked to be led out in a really remote area. No external lighting, no ambient lighting. I let them out, and I turned around and started back the way I had come, and almost immediately as I was driving, there was something on the inside of the fence that was running parallel to the vehicle, and I kept glancing over at it to see what it was. Initially, I thought it might have been a horse or something like that, um, and but soon it jumped over the fence, the five wire barbed wire fence that you have that runs along the highway. And so after it jumped over the fence, it got close to the vehicle, and yeah, it reminded me of what you see with these greyhound dogs, these race dogs, really muscular, sinewy, slender, and this thing was white head to toe, and but I was going highway speed, and it kept up with me. Um, at one point, I look over at it, and it's looking at me, and its eyes are glowing like what you see at a movie theater, the exit lights, the orange firing color. It was like that. Like the eyes were self-illuminating, and it was looking right at me. And at that point, I kind of slid down in the driver's seat as low as I could, and I just floored the vehicle. And I didn't look back over at it after that. After we locked eyes for that moment, and so that was one encounter. I had another encounter with a man that was he looked like an older gentleman standing along the highway late at night as me and one of my cousins were driving and in a remote area. This individual was like they only had maybe a loincloth on and splotchy white paint all over their body. Even the hair had the white paint or whatever that is they use. But he was standing alongside of the road on the driver's side. And as we passed them, I slammed on the brakes and we jumped out and ran toward where that was, but it was gone. But later, my father told me that's what that is. So,
Okay. So so with that, right? So there's going to be some people that are watching this and they're going to be hearing that and just being like, "What? Like,
yeah,
what? That's not." And I'm not anymore. I grew up with a Christian background. I
right.
grew up in Christianity. Then I
Yeah,
left in my early 20s, and then there was like a long period there where I was just like, I don't believe in anything, and I don't
yeah,
want to believe in anything. I want to start from scratch and just be like,
yeah.
none of this is real. Let's start from here and move up. And then I experienced some things. I shared some of them. I saw something that we thought might have been a ghost in a graveyard once.
Yeah,
I've seen a UAP in the sky. I've
yeah.
seen weird shadow things that aren't supposed to be there, and that started to open my mind more to like, okay, I think religions are trying to explain something that's here, but and science is kind of trying to dismiss it. But now I think like religion and science are kind of like, finding out that maybe we should work together here. But you know, I'm like, if I talk to a Christian about this is where I'm going with this. They would probably say that a skinwalker is a demon or it's demonic, right? But um, like, what would you say to a a Christian person that just says like UFOs are demonic, all skinwalkers are demons, it's all Satan, it's all devil. Like, do you guys have any insight onto like how you would talk to somebody like that, or what you would
I'd
say to
like
them?
John to address that
Okay.
if he would.
Yeah, you started into this conversation. What generally happens is we interpret things that are going on around us through the lens of our experiences. So if you grew up and went to church, then everything becomes good and evil, and angels and demons. Um, in Navajo culture, you have um positive things and negative things, and these would be considered negative entities that are living on that negative side. We're just starting to understand this, even at a subatomic level, where they're finding out that if you think negatively all the time, um, at a subatomic level, that vibration creates a sympathetic vibration with other negative energies, and they tend to come toward you and get close to you. So you start experiencing more and more negative things. Likewise, if you're a positive type person, you're going to bring that positive energy toward yourself. So we tend to look at it as negative energy and positive energy, which is in its simplistic form, exactly what it is. Um, so, it's not to say that your religion is wrong or religion gets thrown out the door, because it can protect you. And we've used that. We pray, and that protects us, along with smudging and other Native American things that we do. Other cultures have ways way back in the past to protect themselves also. Um, so, I'm not advocating pick up a sage bundle and go out and protect yourself. I'm saying that everybody, don't culturally appropriate something, but use something in your culture. Even the church uses a urn, swinging back and forth by the priest to go walk through the church building. Um, so yeah, there's there we try not to look at that way, because um, we look at it, we don't hold to the idea that we believe. People say, "Do you believe in Bigfoot? Do you believe in UFOs?" And we hate that word because it implies that you have to have a belief based on faith alone, without seeing anything. And we look at the evidence. If the evidence, and we're actually, we don't go out there and go, "Oh, let's go find Bigfoot." We go out there and we say, "Okay, is there a guy in a rubber suit with a zipper on the back? Is there somebody trying to fake this?
Right.
Is, uh, we even look at the people, do they drink, and were they drinking that day? Do they take drugs? Do they take prescription medication? Do they have a history of mental illness?" We look at all that kind of stuff, and just we vet them just like we're going to go into a federal court system and have them testify.
That's great. And Stan, I wanted to just mention like the Skinwalker experience that you were talking about. I'm sure you guys get asked about. I mean, I've heard you asked about Skinwalkers a lot, and probably other people do. But you know, like explaining that to somebody like me, I've never seen one, but I've seen stuff that if I tried to explain it to you, you'd be like, okay, So like for me, it's like what's helped me like when I've left Christianity and coming back to this and just trying to be a little more open minded, and then learning, especially from guys like you, about how to look at this. Like when do you well, I guess my question is, when you looked at the Skinwalker, obviously you had fear and it gave you fear, so that's a negative energy, right? Does that follow you home or does that stay with you? Could you sleep that night? Did you have to pray to make it like go away? Like what's the reaction after you have a situation like that?
When we
Well,
go into one of, uh,
Oh,
oh,
sorry.
go ahead, Stan.
um, one thing is that with these experiences, regardless of whether it's a Bigfoot or UFOs, or most of those individuals we contact that are reporting this, most 9 out of 10, they're traumatized in some way. And so for us to go into the case, we're there to listen and to try to help that individual and to let them know that they're not crazy, that there are people that experience this stuff. And you know, a lot of it you can't really explain right off the cuff. It's something you have to get into. And you know, these Bigfoot cases, a lot of times as it's reported to you, you go into it and it could be what traditionally what people report as a Bigfoot, you know, something that's 7 or 8 feet tall, covered in hair, or as you get into it, it could it could go to the left, which is could be something of witchcraft and or shape shifting and that kind of thing. So until you actually get into it and look at the evidence that's there, you actually begin finding out the details of the nature of what the phenomenon is. So
So were you frightened at all after you saw something like that? I mean, I know you said you went in your chair, but like I would have too.
I was, yeah, I was younger, and that was prior to my law enforcement days. I think, you know, Jon and I had worked SWAT for years,
Yeah.
and there's been times that we've been shot at, you know, uh, things like that. And in SWAT, you know, you're highly trained, and you learn to control your emotions. You learn to keep a level head and focus on the objective that you need to accomplish, and let that lead your way, as opposed to being overcome with fear. Many special operators I've heard, in their way of their mindset and looking at things, is that sure, the fear is there, but you learn to control it and channel it in such a way that uh, you keep very focused on what you need to do, and that's what keeps you alive in these situations, like when you're being shot at or whatever.
Yeah, the
The other thing is,
adrenaline. Yeah.
a lot of these cases, especially like haunting cases, um, these the entities that are encountered at times, they're trying to evoke that fear in that individual, especially the victim. And if they react, if they jump, scream, run, it can actually feed off of that energy and become more intense and um, um, more
Manif-
powerful.
yeah, manifest.
Manifest. Yeah. So go ahead, Jon. You might want to
Yeah,
elaborate some.
we we always understood that if you get into these types of situations, um, it's just like rolling up on an accident with multiple victims all strewn about the place. If you can't control your emotions and get them in check, you're no good to anybody. And those people laying on the ground are counting on you for assistance. So you have to just do what you and then afterwards, you know, you might take a deep breath and go, "Wow, I wasn't expecting that."
Yeah.
Uh, and then afterwards, we'll go back and pray and smudge ourselves and do whatever else we need to do to. The whole idea there is to in Navajo they call it hojo. It's this balance. It recognizes that there's negative energy and positive energy, but that there has to be a balance between the two. And so that's what you're always trying to achieve is that balance. Uh,
In every aspect of life, whether it's your diet, your spirituality, no matter what it is. We were taught to strive for balance in all parts of your life, mind, body, and spirit.
That sounds like a good lesson to be taught. That
Well,
sounds
you look at a lot of things that are going on in the world today, and the way we look at that, a lot of these things are just completely upside down from where they should be. There's no balance in it. Um, a person that, you know, having having a drink,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing wrong with having a drink.
Hey, cheers to that.
But if you let that drink like this control your life and make those decisions for you, that's where you lead to trouble with your health, with your mind, with those around you. Um, so it's a matter of controlling those kind of things in your life and having balance.
Yeah, that's great. I I want to say too. I appreciate you guys coming forward and talking about this stuff too. I know you guys were, John. You like to call it volun. Was it voluntold
Yeah.
to? Yeah. So they didn't volunteer, but they were basically voluntold by the chief at the time, right? That you guys got to
That was,
investigate this stuff. We don't want to be a part of it, but since you guys didn't grow up on the Nation, right? You guys were like the best candidates to go check this stuff out. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
essentially, yes. The other rangers would run into this stuff. We were told that we would get the big cases that came out of the field that the rangers had. All law enforcement officers out here have had some type of encounters, whether it be UFOs, whether it be things that go bump in the night, or skinwalkers, or Bigfoot. They just don't talk about them. So we're the only ones that really came forward and said, "Well, let's talk about it." I remember telling Stan when we first started, I says, "I'm getting too old to worry about what people think about me, so let's go ahead and talk about this."
Oh, it's great. I'm so glad you
the,
guys are doing it.
the thing with that, John and I have done presentations, all over, and traveled abroad to even Scotland and presented the investigations we've done. And we've been approached by individuals in tears after our presentations. When an elderly woman of 85 comes up and with tears in her eyes and hugs you and tells you, thank you for doing what you do. And she's able to relate an experience, an incident that she had that was paranormal when she was a young girl. And her family standing around with their mouth wide open because she never conveyed that to them for whatever reason. And, it has a really big impact on you in what me and John do. And so,
I bet you that impact too makes you understand more that you're doing something right then by
oh,
talking
it's
about it.
Well, yeah, we need to state this right up front. Understand that we are law enforcement officers. We do not hold with what we see today happening with people in their encounter with law enforcement. Um, One of the things that we pride ourselves on, uh, and we were talking about this quite a bit. Uh, you, it's like playing in a football game. You switch it on, and there's violence for a few seconds. You switch it off, and you go back to the huddle. Um, in the same token, uh, in today's world, these guys are not switching it off. And you have to have a high degree of professionalism, and you have to have
control,
a high, yeah, control and discipline.
discipline,
And we don't see that type of discipline happening anymore. I've actually been, spit in the face. And the guy that did that, I mean, I could have taken him back and just waylaid him in the booking area. But what I what I did is I came in and I asked him, "Can you have an officer meet me at the Sally port?" and escort this guy in and book him for me because I don't want anything to happen. And I got back in the dispatch area, washed my face. The dispatcher said I looked so upset that she asked me, are you going home? And I said, no, I'm finishing up the shift. I just need to wash my face and get this spittle off.
Yeah.
So it takes that kind of discipline where you're not going to put yourself in that situation. So that's what we see as different. You know,
Well,
we we yeah.
oh,
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to cut you off. I was what I've got from the interviews I've watched with you guys. Uh, I think there's also a difference too, where you guys actually care about people. I've heard how you guys talk about helping people, and
Yeah.
I know that some of the investigations you've looked into since you've been retired. I mean, you guys don't get paid for it; you just do it to help people. Um, I
Well, that
and
continues till today. We're still, I mean, we're not in law enforcement anymore, but if somebody comes up to one of us and they're needing help, they're desperate, we're not going to turn them away. We'll do what we can to try to assess and determine what's going on in their individual case, and then we may reach out to our resources, whether it's a medicine man or clergy or whoever might can help this individual. And we don't pretend to be, we're not medicine men at all. And although we do depend on people with that background for information, sometimes in how we approach a case or how we deal with it. And so,
well, you're more qualified than most people, I'd say. I mean,
yeah, well,
to look into this stuff, just
yeah.
how where you guys grew up, and then just all your years in law enforcement for the Navajo Nation too. It's incredible. Um, I wanted to go into you briefly talked about going to Scotland or overseas. I recently finished this book by Jacques Vallée, and it was called Passport to Magonia,
Yeah.
and it it basically goes through history and all over different parts of the world, and just how people, you guys were kind of mentioning this in the beginning, but how people call things other names, but it's like kind of the same phenomenon, and it's
Right.
going around everywhere. And I
Right.
think that's a part of you know uh people, when people hear the word disclosure, they're like aliens and UFOs, but it's just so much more than that. I think disclosure is actually us going back, and or well, it's truth coming forward, but it's us along with, like us as in scientists, academia, like um all all world religions, kind of like going, you know, um kind of like coming together and hearing each other's stories instead of being divided by our, that belief, like kind of throwing away the belief and kind of looking at the evidence and like, hey, actually something is going on here. We're all kind of calling this stuff different things, but we realize they're very similar all over the world. So we all kind of have to come together. And I think how you guys were talking about balance, I think that's kind of how the world will come into balance, is with this. um that's just what it
Well,
made me think of.
I mean, you look at something like the phenomenon of these things people call Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Hmm.
You have skunk ape, you have Yeti, Yowie, all these different terms, but essentially they're describing pretty much the same kind of thing. And the same with the Skinwalker, the Ray, Wendigo. Uh, these are things that are within the human experience, regardless of the location and the culture. They're happening everywhere.
Hmm.
The commonality in all of these paranormal things, John and I have come to the conclusion that the common thread is this idea of different dimensions, um, where you have some mechanism of a gateway back and forth between our physical world and some other plane. I did a haunting case where there were coins that would materialize and fall out of thin air into the floor, come flying across the room. Sometimes they would hit us. And so in a 2-day investigation, a total of 65 coins that appeared, and of all of those, I know at least 10 of them I actually witnessed the appearance of the coin out of thin air. And so when you witness that with your own eyes
Mm-hmm.
and repeatedly, and others are seeing the same phenomena repeatedly, you it's that epiphany moment where a light bulb goes on above your head and you realize there's so much more to our world than what we could ever imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And science in that situation, in physics, would say, that's not possible. It didn't happen like that or whatever. I know that it did because I witnessed it and repeatedly. And it opens the door to other things like if you realize that a physical coin can materialize out of nothingness, then why can't a person like in Star Trek or something teleport from one location to another location? And like with the Bigfoot, we don't, we've lived out in the woods at times, and there's no evidence that this thing is living like a mountain lion or a bear or that kind of thing. If it did, its size and whatever would be leaving these huge piles of scat that would be very, very obvious as you walk through the forest. And it's just not there. It's not there. And so I know people are witnessing these things, but like I said, it's not in our investigations and in what we see. It's not something that's living there. Either it's being put here on our physical planet and people witness it, or maybe an extraterrestrial UFO or whatever. The occupants are putting these things here for whatever reason, and then pulling them back aboard. It'll leave the tracks out through here and the different evidence, hair evidence, and whatever. Um, but or it's crossing over on its own from some type of gateway into our world, and then it crosses back. That may be also occurring like with witchcraft, where they manipulate the different planes to come in and out, travel great distances, just like that. And
So
who knows?
I have a question about that. So
Sure.
so like right now, what we're doing, this is so incredible now that we can talk to each other instantaneously and
And see
actually
each other.
see each other. And I feel like I'm just having a drink with you guys, like if we,
Yeah.
met at a brewery or something.
Yeah.
This is great, and that was the whole point of this show when I started. Is I
That's
just want to
great.
talk. Thank you,
Yeah.
but I want to learn, and hopefully other people will learn. But I want it to be very casual, and but
Well, that's what we do. It's all about the learning.
yeah,
Everything we go into, every situation, whether it's an 85-year-old woman or a 10-year-old child, stopping and shutting your mouth and listening to what they have to say. We don't do that in this country or in the world today. We could learn so much from a child that would say, you know, we shouldn't be committing acts of war, killing, and, you know, threatening world war and nuclear war and this kind of shit. And, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
but if we listen, we could learn so much.
And with that, I I read Professor Diana Pasulka. She's a chair of religious studies at North Carolina. She had a book that my friend Vinny recommended to me. It was called American Cosmic, and it was great just the way she looked at the phenomenon as a professor of religious studies. It was kind of tying in how like the Catholic Church has looked at it, and they try to explain it, or and other religions. But I guess I just heard an interview with her, and she's doing she's writing a new book, but she was saying like she really thinks that we need to start, you know, talking to indigenous peoples and indigenous culture, because man, they, I mean, so much knowledge has been lost in today's, you know, society. And I mean, obviously because of colonialism, you know, it's fucking, it's terrible. But we've lost this wealth of wisdom, this wealth of knowledge. And it's almost like, yeah, I mean, it's totally like this, but it's like, why, would, you know, indigenous people want to teach, you know, the world because of how they've been treated? But there's so much love and there's so much balance with indigenous people, and I think that, you know, I just think that that's exactly where we're going next, is that scientists and physicists and, you know, professors of all, when we're going to try to figure this UAP thing out, this whole phenomenon out, we got to start talking to the people with this knowledge. But
Yeah.
what do you guys think what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'm one that we are all human, regardless of our race, regardless of our religion. You look at the span of different religions throughout history, and to me, I can look at every one of those religions and learn good things that I can take and I can apply to my life to better myself and to help others. And so that's what I do. That's what I do. And but you know, I think we're here to learn and to help others. Like what you had mentioned earlier, as a law enforcement officer, I was taught there's only two reasons why you become a law enforcement officer, and or a combination of those. And that's to help people and to protect people. If you're getting into that field for any other reasons, root reasons, you're getting into it for the wrong reason. And I think that's reflected today in our what we see, and you know, and that's really one of the fundamental reasons why I had to say, you know, I can't stay in this field any longer. It's too upsetting, you know, to see. And I know that's not everybody in law enforcement. The majority of law enforcement are good people that are there to help others, to protect others. But there's a lot of stuff that's going on that shouldn't be happening, you know.
Yeah, and I've read about just pretty much all over the country how um it's hard for, I guess the recruitment rate is going down with all, you know, um in all states, pretty in all major cities, of police officers, and they're trying to recruit people. And I know that about the Navajo Rangers as well, right? Aren't they dwindling down to nothing pretty much?
Well, I've gone from near 50 Rangers on and before I came on. And I think when I left, there was a total of 8 remaining
Oh wow.
to,
Okay.
to cover 25,000 square miles. And you
Wow.
know, and I know, you just can't do it with that amount of, and especially covering that much type of enforcement. You can't do it. And you got to think about the safety of those officers. I mean,
Yeah.
there's times that me and John would have backup that was over an hour away, and it's
If they
become
could
more
find us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
cartels and drug enforcement and all that.
Man, that's like, I mean, it it takes 1 second to get killed pretty much. Like if you guys have to wait an hour, that must be like an eternity.
It can be.
Oh man. Wow.
When
Um
in the metropolitan areas, your backup is minutes away, if that. Sometimes, you know, no more than 2 minutes,
yeah.
and it's not that way in a lot of native law enforcement agencies in this country.
Yeah.
You have to be dependent on your abilities to keep yourself alive, and knowing, you know, it's about they say the mind is the most powerful weapon, and it's really depending on your tactics and your skill working with people, to negotiate these things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm I'm curious. I have uh, I was wondering about, like, in some of these cases, because I know that you guys have worked with the FBI, and outside enforcement comes in, you guys work with them. But have you ever had to experience, like, because even sorry, it might, if I'm all over the place here, but with the Navy and their sightings, they've said that, some of these guys coming forward said, like, some people out of nowhere showed up, wanted all the files, took off. They never saw him again. So with you guys, has that ever happened to you? Like, you guys are investigating something and then somebody shows up, you're like, who the hell is that? Has that
Okay,
ever happened?
John. Okay, John.
Okay. I had a case where we had a string of UFOs uh, flying in a counterclockwise circle around my community. Uh, this was the night before the Phoenix lights happened,
Wow.
and we had these lights. They were following each other. They would literally play follow the leader. The first one would change color. The next one would change to that color. On down the line. The first one would fluoresce like a flare, getting brighter and brighter, and then it would go out and then change color again. So this kept going on, and for a good 40 minutes, I was outside with a tripod and a 8 millimeter video cam, and I was just following this thing around, rotating and dictating into the microphone, say what I was seeing.
Yeah.
No sound. It was at night. The whole community, the street where I live, everybody turned out their lights and brought their lawn chairs out into the front yards and just sat there and watched this show. So we thought, oh man, pretty soon they all flew off toward the west over the Grand Canyon. And we were saying, man, all the press in the world is going to be all over the town tomorrow. You know, um, so we are kind of getting ready for that. The very next evening, the Phoenix lights hit and totally eclipsed everything that happened.
Whoa.
So I took my little 8 millimeter and put it away and didn't think about it anymore. I had even called the county sheriffs and asked them. I asked the dispatch. I says, "You got anybody on the end of town in Flagstaff that can verify something for me?" And they said, "No, we got nobody. What's going on?" I said, "Never mind." I hung up the phone. Um, when all was said and done, out of the blue, maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, this guy comes. Everybody says Men in Black. Well, this guy had a white T-shirt on. He looked like a bodybuilder, and his name was Greg. He said, and he was from Grants, New Mexico. And he says, I'm a UFO investigator, and can I take a look at do a scientific analysis on your video?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." I didn't think anything about it, so I gave him the video. He left with it, and I never saw it again.
Oh man.
And
No
to this
copy?
day, no
No,
copy.
no.
So you're trying to be helpful, but I found out you just can't be helpful to some people. Um, so I don't know if that's the modern version of the Man in Black, but I if I had that tape today, boy, you'd see it all over the the TV shows, because I'd be able to show that that incident did happen, and I got some really clear shots. They were about maybe 7 or 8 miles out. So, and I was just circling around, following them with with the camera.
Isn't
So
it?
yeah,
Isn't it? That's a crazy story, but I Greg, wherever you are. But uh, it's crazy.
Uh,
Like even you had that great shot. I wonder though, even if you put it out to somebody or like History Channel put it out or whatever the news. There's always people even now with the Navy videos that are out that are just like debunking them or like it's a the the common joke is it's a seagull or whatever like they
oh yeah.
try to make it out to
Or
Swamp
be.
gas.
or it yeah, it's swamp gas or the planet Jupiter or, something else, yeah.
But
Um,
with that though, it's like I think, the fact that we are all connected now and that we all can share this information and you have pretty much a library in your hand now, um, and access to so much. We're not that dumb. Like the majority of us, we aren't dumb. We understand like something's going on here. And
Right.
well, in the case of some people, it actually gets to the point where they say, "Don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is already made up."
mhm,
So no matter what you say, they're professional debunkers out there. That's what they live for. That's
yeah.
how they make their money. Is they become the opposing person on the other side. And we try to vet all our stuff. Um, we don't just say, "Oh, I saw a UFO." We look at it as a temperature inversion. Is it what is the star system looking like right now?
Mhm,
Uh, how you got flight radar to tell you what kind of airplanes are out flying, and even if they're flying but they don't have any identification on them, it'll still show them. But when you tag on it, it'll say unknown. Um, and these are military flights.
yeah, and like how do you that one case you guys looked into? I don't want to spoil too much of that episode, but the one where the woman was driving and an orb came down and some people will be like, well, it was a star, it was a shooting star, but how it's described is the orb it comes down, it hangs out on the side of her as she's driving, and then it takes off or whatever. But then when you guys examined it after, there was weird like magnetic anomalies from the driver's side. Like what would you say, you could pull a string straight through to the other side to just show like where the anomalies were? Is that how it was
Yeah,
explained?
yeah, and that string would have gone right through the driver,
Like right through her head or like
right
some just
through her
body?
through her body. Yeah,
Okay. Wow. And I can't remember, did she have like migraines and stuff after?
yeah.
Yeah.
She had a
Okay. She
migraine the next day, and she's had migraines ever since. And she never had them up to that point.
Oh, that's
Uh,
awful.
we we also looked at the oil and the oil filter, and we found out that there was sodium nitrite, a really big spike of that. Um, Sodium nitrite is not part of oil production. It's not a byproduct, and it's not a product or a byproduct of the oil filter. So they don't know how that got in.
And do you have any thoughts on, because I know there's like, isn't there like a whole um like mines of uranium on the Navajo Nation, and like now they're all kind of like sealed off, like you can't get there. But like, do
Oh,
you think there's any
well,
connection or?
they are not sealed off.
Oh, they aren't.
They're they're just the ones that make the news get sealed off.
Ah,
Um,
Open
okay.
open
I
pit
know,
mines.
yeah, I know one place where they had 98 open uranium tailings pits, and the road actually went through several of them. Um, I was concerned because it was on part of my patrol route. I was concerned about exposure,
Yeah.
and I asked my department for a badge dosimeter, and they told me, they said, if we get you a badge dosimeter, we have to get everybody one, and we can't afford it.
Oh,
So I just told them, okay, I'm not patrolling it anymore, and I didn't. But my kids have instructions that if I ever come down with cancer, to go after that downwinder money,
wow.
because some of these places were there were sites along the river, processing sites that are so radioactive that if you walked onto it within 15 minutes, you'd be sick.
Ugh, that's terrible.
So,
Man.
and then these places they're pits. So during the summertime, you have wind blowing, it blows the dust out and blows it
Mm,
downwind. Uh, During the springtime, you have rain and the pits fill up with water. And now the cattle go down there to drink. So now you got cattle that have radionuclide contamination, and the kids go over there and go swimming. And you have generations of people. IHS, Indian Health Service, did a study on it and found genetic damage of third generation people out there.
oh, it's just awful. So I mean, I'm not proposing you guys have a solution for that, but like, what do you have any opinions on that? Like how that can be fixed or some type of solution or something?
Well, it's a crazy situation because the mines left. They were operating from the 50s all the way up to the early 70s,
Oh, so much
and
damage.
when the mines left, they left the area. The mines pointing their fingers at the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Bureau of Indian Affairs is pointing their finger at the tribe. The tribe is pointing their finger at the mine operations.
Mm,
And it just goes round and round, people blaming people, but nothing was ever done about it. And yes, I do understand there's super fun money out there, but I think if I went out to this location tomorrow, I'd see 98 open pits still in that area. Not only that, but they left caches of explosives sitting under the rocks out in the open. Um, we actually had a big fire going in the Lukachukai Mountains, and we had to tell, they brought a Type 1 team out, which is slurry bombers and their own airfield. And they even have a light tower. And we told them, do not fly over this ridge right here. Um, and we told them that there's old mines up there and there's explosives that are still sitting there. Uh, uh, Funny thing about dynamite, it sits in the sun long enough and it sweats. You get nitroglycerin, so now it's unstable, and so you don't even want to touch it because if you bump it wrong, it can self detonate. And you're fine. We found a box of 77 sticks of dynamite, blasting caps, and det cord.
oh my,
So all we could do is gingerly put a det cord around the box and go off a quarter mile and set it off. And it looked like a small atomic explosion when it went off.
wow.
Um, so
Wow.
these guys in the Lukachukas were flying a slurry bomber near that place, and one of those old mines detonated. And they said, they told us, "Thanks for telling us about that, because that explosion would have knocked one of our slurry bombers right out of the air."
Wow. That's I mean, it's I mean, it's an incredible story, like, but it's also like just it's so terrible that that's all still there, you know?
Oh
True.
yeah,
Just left.
what if a
It,
kid gets a hold of it?
yeah.
Right.
Or just the wind, like you were saying, just the wind blows it up and someone living down wind,
Yeah.
breathing it in. It's
Yeah.
it's it's terrible. I mean, so I mean, it pretty much just sounds like US Congress right now. They're all pointing fingers and blaming each other and they don't try to nobody works together to get anything done. Like how you're saying
Yeah.
there. Everyone's just pointing fingers. It's just it kind of seems like that sometimes like I mean, more likely the case that, you know, the the people in power, the people in control to make things happen, they all kind
Well,
of
they
blame each other, you know?
Yeah, they were getting logs of uranium out of here, and uranium was pure enough that it was considered weapons grade. It didn't take much processing to build it up. And our big fear today is that everybody's saying we want to start mining uranium again. And, we're going, no, you know, you screwed it up the last time, you want to do it
Yeah.
again. So,
Oh man. Yeah, that's wild. So, you know, I guess like I want to have hope there's some solution or somebody can come along and figure something out, but um that is such a big mess, you know. It's such a big mess to clean up,
yeah,
to figure
yeah.
out. Um I uh, what would that, I mean, hypothetically, like if somebody like finally had a change of heart, like Jeff Bezos, or like I'm trying to think of a billionaire out there, like Mark Cuban or something, and was like, "Hey, I'll donate like this much millions of dollars to kind of help come in and build some infrastructure to like, you know, maybe help cover it up, clean it up." Like, would the Navajo Nation, do you think, would they be like open to something like that, or would they be like, "Oh, yeah, screw this guy, get out of here"?
Well, they go through the super fund process. The problem is that super fund money has to be allocated, for a myriad of other things. And so we're just one of the competing things for it, and it's on a timetable. So it might be 20 years before they get out there and do anything with it.
Yeah.
But it's on the time deal. Um, I signed paperwork to get a new school built over here in my community. It took 10 years before they finally started construction.
Wow. That it just takes a decade, and then it's like, all right, here we go. Oh man.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, I was just learning. I think I was just learning about, there's a, oh man, I can't remember the island, but there's a nuclear site on an island that they covered up in, I think it was the 60s or 70s, and now the water's starting to come and erode this like small concrete cover, and all the people live around there, and they're like, uh all right, US, what are you going to do about it? You guys going to come help us out, you know? And it's kind of the same situation. It's like, it's such a mess, but like nobody is, so someone going to do something about this? What's going on here, you know? Um
Yeah, I want to say Atoll, but
I think that's the one. Yeah, thank you.
yeah.
Um I uh you guys are you're you're so intelligent with a lot of this stuff. I've heard you guys bring up Nikola Tesla and quote Nikola Tesla before. You guys talking about different, you know, possible different dimensions, and like just the stuff you guys know about is so awesome. Besides like law enforcement, and you know, eh, I can tell you guys have curious minds. Um, I was I want to kind of go back a little to some of the paranormal stuff. Stan talked about the coins coming out of midair. I Correct me if I'm wrong. Um, I've heard that that's called the hitchhiker effect. If like you encounter something and then it comes home with you or follows you around. But I I know it followed you back to your house, the coins dropping. But did you say it's still ongoing to this day? It recently, I think I heard you say that recently, and I was like, coins are still dropping on you today? Like, this is this still happening?
It is. And so recently I was at a convenience store nearby here, and um, I was there getting an item early in the morning. There was a gentleman standing next to me, and so a coin materialized between him and I. Were standing side by side, and a coin materialized in front of us between us and the counter. There was another individual that was at the standing in front of the register paying for his items. And as we were standing there, a quarter appeared and fell on the floor. And I know this gentleman standing next to me witnessed what just happened. And because he turned and looked at me, and the expression on his face was just you know, one of these situations where you can't wrap your mind around what just happened. And for me, I looked at him, I smiled, and I leaned forward and I grabbed the quarter and I just tucked it in my jean jacket pocket. And so and that one was maybe I think about 2 months ago or something like that. But
Wow.
there's been some of these even since then. So um and it happens anywhere. I mean, that original case was I think in 2009, and so the phenomenon still happens today. In the original investigation, there was a total of 65 coins, and they would hit the concrete floor, poured concrete floor. They'll spiral in a big circle maybe and fall over. Out of all the 65, they were a heads up. So you and I know that statistically and with probability that is not possible. And I've come to realize that it, for me, it's some type of spirit activity, and that spirit is letting me know, heads up, I'm here. Something as simple as that. We tried analyzing the years and the types of metal, and but I think it's as simple as that. It's
So
it's spirit letting me know that, hey, I'm present. I'm in. You know.
yeah, and that makes me think of too, like how we were talking about different dimensions possibly. I mean,
Right.
I think physics is pretty much like saying, yeah, there's different dimensions we can't like perceive or whatever. Um, even like, what is time? Because time is kind of a thing we had to make up for us to
Right.
understand, like, um, but um the fact that it's a coin means, it's something we can understand, right? Because like if it dropped something else, it's something we couldn't understand. So
Well, the apports with the coins is a very common phenomenon among haunting type
okay.
cases globally. I mean, some of the things I've read after that phenomenon and looking at it, um, there's some bizarre situations with coins that people experience globally, and I don't. I kind of think that the makeup of a coin, the size of a coin, those dimensions, the metallurgy is something that uh, those kind of forces and spirit can manipulate, that they can move or make appear or whatever it is. And like I said, um, I've had this phenomenon happen all over this country. I've had it happen in Scotland when I was there, and so um, yeah, it's not confined to a certain area or space or whatever. Can
It's
happen
all
anywhere,
over. Yeah.
anytime. Yeah,
That's, it's
it's
so interesting because
interesting.
yeah, it's like it's the reason it's interesting too is just because, you know, we can't explain that, but we don't know what it is, but it's happening. So, and then again, like I know there's people watching this. Like I have friends and family who watch this, and they might just write it all off, um, or people just tune in, check it out, like, oh, they're talking about paranormal stuff, whatever. But like, there is definitely more. Like, no matter really who I talk to today, and it's not just all people that are into this. They'll be like, oh, my mom has a story, or like my brother has a story, my grand, like it does affect a lot of us, and there's some people that are more open to it than others, but I'm wondering,
Right,
like, because when you were younger you had an experience. John, I don't know if you had any experiences when you were younger, but I don't know
yeah.
if you guys were already open to it, or because if you were investigating it, if it became even more like open to you guys, like whatever these other intelligences are, these other forces. Like, what do you think? Do you think it's been with you guys since you were kids, or do you think it came into your life more when you started investigating it?
For me, I had a UFO sighting back in what was 69 and 70s, maybe about 70, 71,
Okay.
up in the mountains on the reservation here. And in that case, what I saw today would be classified as a red orb, about maybe the size of a softball, moving through the trees, floating, and it headed up a hill, um, or a mountainside, through the trees, weaving back and forth. 2 in the morning, we were leaving to head back to Los Angeles, and it would take us from the top of the mountain to get down. It'd take us a good hour and a half. So, pretty rocky dirt road. Um, when I saw it, my grandmother explained that it was that's how skinwalkers travel. That and my grandfather wanted to get out of the vehicle with a 30-30 and shoot it, and she was screaming at him, "You leave it alone." So that was one of the encounters that I had. Throughout my whole career, I've seen UFOs, cigar shapes, discs, um, orbs, triangles, squares, seeing just a whole bunch of different types. And I've had missing time several times
Oh wow.
where you're going down the road, at the same place. You go down, see a landmark, and you say, "Oh, I only got so many minutes to get home." And you drive and drive and drive. Seems like forever, and then you pass the same place again. And by that time, you're kind of getting upset because this kind of stuff's happening to you. And so I finally said, I'm going to capture this on video, and I put a dash cam in the windshield. Since then, since I put that dash cam in, I haven't had any sightings of any UFOs, and that's okay with me. And so since then, I bought a new dash cam that records in 4K, and it records 1080p out the back window. And I says, I don't care what they think. If they leave me alone, I'm good with that.
Yeah, maybe that's like if someone doesn't want to see anything, just make sure you
Yeah,
put up a camera at all times that'll
there you
you know make it stay away. I I I saw, or my wife and I, it was on July 4th of 2013. We were off the coast of San Diego and we were just walking around, but we saw this weird it's basically like this giant silver sphere. I can't tell how big it was, but from where I was, it might have been like maybe 300, 400 feet in the air, and it was probably like the size of a Volkswagen Bug, like if you spun it around into a sphere. Terrible description, but it was so weird, and I saw it, and it was off the coast, and it was just up there, and it looked like it was like if you stuck a marble in the mud, but it was like stuck in the sky. It wasn't like hovering; it was just stuck. And I think I had a little red at the bottom, or the middle was like a little red light that was just like barely visible, but no sound. And I was so like I couldn't really do anything with it. So this family was walking by, me and my wife were like, "What?" And at that time, 2013, I think I had a clam phone, and the taking a picture on those clam phones
Oh
was
yeah.
nothing. So I was trying to take a picture of it, but nothing's coming up. It just looked black, the screen, because it was nighttime. But this family was walking by and asked us it was like uh, a dad and his a mom and like their kids. I was like, "Hey, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but do you see this?" And he looked up and he's like, "What is that?" And we're all kind of looking at it, and he goes, "Huh, must be a UFO." And then he just left. But I totally forgot about it. And again, like I was at a period in my life then where I was like, I'm not like, again, I don't want to believe anything. I just want evidence. I don't want to like think about like ghosts, spirits, God, angels, demons, like it all. Like I just want to believe in science. Um, Kind of was like uh I think I'm an atheist. Like that's what I was where I was going. But when 2017, when the Pentagon confirmed those videos, and then all the Navy personnel that were coming forward, and then now we have, you know, I mean, there's just so much evidence and so many people coming forward and saying it's real and coming forward with their descriptions of certain things that have happened. And I totally forgot about seeing that until 2017, and it was really weird to me because we were talking about time missing. It was almost like the thought or the memory, like, it's just like gone. And then 2017 it comes up and it's like, oh wait, that we saw that, and
Wow.
and I don't know if that's
Yeah.
the phenomenon doing that to us, like making our
Yeah.
losing time or losing a memory, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on, guys. So
When the Phoenix when the Phoenix lights were seen toward Tucson on the other side of the Estrella Mountains, it passed over the Interstate 10. People on the highway all pulled over. They all got out of their cars and watched this thing go over the top of them.
yeah.
When it went on, nobody asked each other, "Did you just see what I saw?" Nobody talked about it. They all got back in their cars and all silently drove on. So yeah, there is a very interesting phenomenon that goes on with this stuff. People, I mean, we have cameras, right? Now we have 80 pixel, megapixel cameras, and um, and yet when we see something, do we grab for that camera?
Not
No,
always.
we
Yeah.
look we look at it and go, wow, and then afterwards we thought, gee, I should have grabbed my camera. So that's why I put the dash cam in.
Yeah.
All I have to do is point the truck now.
Yeah. I mean, it's it's so strange. I obviously, I mean, we all obviously have to come together to try to figure this out. I think the science, the science, you know, scientist part of it, I think they're kind of just realizing it's real now, and they were kind of like where I was, where it's like there's nothing, we just need that. But now there's so much evidence and so much data. I think a lot more scientists are starting to come over and be like, oh wait, we got to actually look into this. Like, I know that NASA has a team looking into it now. um, and we have the Galileo project, that's at Harvard. We have Gary Nolan from Stanford looking into it. Like, so it's just a whole different world now that we're actually taking this seriously. And um and that's why, I thank you for um sharing this all and sharing this publicly. Like, even, it's a privilege for me to get to talk to you guys about this today, because I've always been an Unsolved Mysteries fan. So, like, when the new seasons came out and I saw you, uh my wife and I thought your episode, that was our favorite episode.
Well,
And the whole
thank you.
afterwards, I'm like, those guys are badasses. Like, I wish I could talk to them. And this is, before I was like, I'm going to start BrewFOs. But you know, I thought of you guys as soon as I was like, all right, I'm going to start this, and like hopefully people can hear your story. Um, so thank you for talking about this stuff. Um,
Sure.
are you guys okay on time? Should we start wrapping up, or are you guys all right for
I'm
now?
good. I'm good.
Um,
Whatever you need.
um, yeah, and I'm good too.
Okay. I had kind of just I wrote down so many questions. I never look at my notes. So I should probably do that, but just a
I
fun one. Oh, go
I
ahead.
may
Yeah.
need to get another beer though.
No, that's fine. If you need to take off, um, I can have John answer it if you need to go grab another beer.
Okay, that'll work.
But I saw you have a guitar in the back, and
Oh
I
yeah.
know, John, you play guitar too, right?
Yeah.
So I was wondering, because I'm a musician myself, but I was wondering, you guys work so well together. You guys are always coming on interviews together. Do you guys jam? You guys ever
We
play
we
guitar
we
together?
did a few times. Now Stan plays more of the Metallica and hard rock kind of stuff.
Right on.
I play more 60s and 70s and folk type of stuff. And
One of these
so
days, him and I are going to move to LA and just play on the side of the street together.
yeah,
That'd be good. You guys got to
yeah,
live stream it.
but we basically play for our own enjoyment, and it's just I've been playing for I think 48 years now.
Oh wow.
Um, it was so funny because I went to high school and I saw the guys playing guitar in the quad area, and all the girls are standing around them. So I thought, that's what I want to do. That's for me. And they both played 12 strings. So I had to buy myself a 12 string. And what was so cool back then, it was all "Take Me Home, Country Roads." Um, the band song that you can never play in a guitar center was brand new then, "Stairway to Heaven,"
Yeah, yeah.
and we'd sit there and play that. The girls would say, sing it again," Um, but I got good enough at it that I could keep up with these guys, and I forgot all about the girls, and that's how it's been ever since.
Oh, the
So
music
yeah.
stayed with you. That's yeah. I mean, that's cool that you still play though. I mean, some people just give it up, you know.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah. No, it's still going.
yeah, it's so Stan, you're like you're a rock a metalhead or what? What's going on here?
I graduated high school in 1984,
Okay.
and in the years before that, that was the hair metal days, and in my school, I was the first one that was listening to Motley Crue and those kind of bands. I even earlier, prior to that, I listened to the Black Sabbath and Judas Priest, and so my mother had bought me an electric guitar, which for the most part sat in the corner of the room, and it wasn't until you're sitting there listening to the radio and messing around with it. I actually figured I learned I could play along to, Smoke on the Water, which most guitarists learn that song. But I actually figured that, hey, I'm playing something. I'm playing along, and that began for me, playing. And for me to this day, it's a type of therapy to pull a
Yeah.
guitar that's off the wall and set here. Especially, I still do investigation and that kind of thing, and it's a way to it's a therapy for me, and will always be there for me, so
It usually it's I'm so glad that you brought up that it's therapy because it's so true too because it puts your mind in a different state where like
right,
it's so
right.
different from your job or from other day-to-day stuff, and it um
Well, I wish more young people were exposed to different types of music and instrument. You look at the music programs in schools today, and it's almost non-existent, and I hate that because
yeah.
for me it was something that was always there, growing up, and and yeah, even then it was a form of therapy for me to be able to deal with things, and but on the other hand, like John, the girls liked it too, so it was it was yeah, it was a win-win situation there. So
Yeah, I think what gives me hope too. I mean, I know like again, I'll like hold up my phone, but like technology, like there's so many bad things that comes along with it. But the good thing with it is like now with YouTube and stuff, kids have tutorials right in their hands to learn a song or to be shown how to play it and not
Oh
just
sure.
kids, like us too, like oh
When
I never knew how to play this.
when
well,
I was young, we had Mel Bay books that showed you basic guitar chords, and and then you got music books that would show you how to play, like country standards or something.
Yeah.
And that was it. The Otherwise, you had to get with your buddies, kind of noodle it out, figure it.
Yeah.
Well, today, like you said, with the technology, you can get on Google Music or these other different apps, and you can actually listen pretty much to any catalog of music that
Hmm.
exists, And a lot of times I think about that. Oh my God, if I'd only had that growing up, starting out guitar and things like that. Oh my gosh, it would have been crazy to be able to have that opportunity and resource to learn these things. And so,
You just reminded me when I was a teenager. Again, I was very um into Christianity and the church and stuff. And
right,
I'm not, you know, talking shit on Christians or anything. I just
right,
but I'm just saying I'm not one anymore. But uh
right,
I went to, I think, a sermon, and a pastor was just saying you can't listen to secular music. Secular music, if no one's heard secular, it's not Christian music. But you can't listen to that because it's a gateway to the devil or whatever. So I remember I went home and I threw away all the CDs I had, and I was like, I want
oh
to be I
no,
want to be right for
yeah,
Jesus, you know.
yeah,
But
yeah,
thankfully, like you said, now all the catalogs are streaming. So like anything I threw
right,
away, I can listen to now. So,
oh yeah, you can,
but um,
yeah.
uh,
Well, for me, the music was a part of spirituality too. I mean, even for me, the harder rock wasn't something that like I said, it helped me through some difficult times as a teenager and stuff. And so I don't look at that as being, like you said, the views of it being secular or outside our little world. So
yeah. Do you, um do you have any thoughts
Yeah,
about
me.
you brought up
I
a
was gonna.
guitar.
I was
Let's
gonna
see it.
say, me and Stan have been traveling so much that we actually each purchased
Oh,
one
awesome.
of one of these little guys. Those
That
are
is so
the
cool.
travelers guitars.
Yeah.
Um, and boy, we've been having fun. These are made by LTD, and but I just love that.
That's a nice color. Oh,
So,
wow.
but you had to plug it in and everything else. But
Yeah.
we are ready to travel.
Yeah, that's great. You guys are ready to tour. You got to start doing some I don't know. If you
yeah,
guys aren't writing songs, maybe do some covers. And while you guys go talk at these conferences or whatever, hey, we're gonna do a little set, you know.
that'll be
Yeah,
part of it one of these days. Yeah,
it'll get there.
Yeah, lean into the, maybe just the band name is Paranormal Rangers, you know. Who knows? Just a
yeah,
suggestion. But
yeah.
let me just check my notes too, because I want to make sure, because sometimes I look at my notes and I'm like, we hit it all, you know. Yes, yes, okay, we hit that. Um, yeah, oh, okay, okay, here's one. Um, I was wondering, the first episode I talked to Scott Walter, and he's a Freemason. And he's talked about um uh his a lot of his research and the history he looks into and whatever is the Knights Templar and their history, and then them going around the world and coming over here and basically becoming the Freemasons. Templars became the Freemasons, and then their connection to Native Americans, and especially the Medewan. And I didn't know if you guys know of anything Freemason related. If not, that's fine. But do you know any Navajos that are Freemasons, or any connection to Freemasonry that you guys know of?
I don't.
Okay.
John might be able to touch on
No,
that subject.
no, I don't know of any connections there either.
Okay, that's fine. I was just wondering, because I know that he's brought up the Medewan before, but I just didn't know. I was trying to find if there was anything in, like, uh, you know, literature on Navajo, or when anyone knows about them, and if you guys knew anything. But that's fine. Um, Another question I had for you is, um, talking about Catholicism, um, and colonialism and that, but the I know recently in Canada they found like mass graves of kids near, I think it was a Catholic church or a Catholic school, and it
Yeah.
was of indigenous people. And I know that's happened all over pretty much North America. And I think more and more people are going to start learning about that. Um, and we'll probably find more evidence. I didn't know if, uh, I know you were involved with archaeological like investigations of crimes too. I didn't know if any of that had to do with anything related to that, because I know that there's a lot of schools and stuff that were Catholic schools put on Navajo Nation. And I didn't know. I mean, I didn't know if there's any bad stuff that went down that you guys had to investigate, or is that
Well, there are a lot of schools. When it first started back in 1868, it was part of the treaty, and they took people to Carlisle, Pennsylvania,
okay?
and so a lot of them went off of the reservation. This was a program that was called assimilation. It was this wrong belief that America is this great melting pot, and that if you take Navajo kids off the reservations and teach them Anglo values and ways, that they would assimilate into Anglo society, and therefore the reservation would cease to be after so many generations. What they didn't understand was that uh, the United States is not a melting pot; it's a stew pot. And so if you go up into Minnesota, you'll find a huge German population. You'll find Italian populations, Czechoslovakian populations, Polish populations, French populations, and it goes on and on with any ethnicity you can think of. They've got, small enclaves of those populations in the United States. So it's not really a melting pot at all. You had big chunks of all this stew out there. So yeah, they did have a lot of that stuff going on um, early on when the before the westward uh, uh, deal took hold. Historically, what we understand is that there was a council of churches, all the religious organizations got together, and they divided up the United States into spheres of influence. So the Catholic Church got most of the pueblos, and they've got some of the Navajo. Mormons picked up Navajo and Utes and Paiutes, um, and then the what was the other one? Christian Reform got some of the Navajo. So you have all the way across the United States these little groups of religious peoples that are now exercising influence over these native tribes as they're rounded up and put on the reservations.
Yeah, and so you guys never had to investigate anything about like mystery missing children or like anything like that
Uh,
near one of the schools or anything.
no, if anybody did, it would have been the police department,
Okay.
and we tended to leave it alone unless there's a life or death situation that required our assistance right then. Then we would become involved.
Yeah, and so with with that, with this the Roman Catholic ideology coming over, basically, and you know, just converting, brainwashing children out of their own ways. They're, trying to take that tradition, that history away. Um, I was also wondering, like, I don't know, and I know you guys don't speak for all of the Navajo Nation, or but I know you guys have way more insight, than I would. But I learned that the Hopi reservation is like a little island in between the Navajo Nation, and that it that they're very matriarchal, and they have like they really revere women, and there's the belief in the goddess, and like um or like I know that there's different beliefs with like Mother Earth and then Father Sky and certain things like that. I didn't know what you guys think about that, because the Catholic Church is like, God, he, only a dude, then there's Jesus, and like only men can, only popes, only bishops, only cardinals. I didn't know if you guys had any thoughts on like or information about Navajo, and how women, if women are revered at all, or the difference. Does anyone want to go
Well,
in on?
there's a difference, sure, in culture. When the Spanish came, they established churches at all the pueblos. Now, a lot of these took place right after massacres, where they came in and they tried to say, "Okay, you're going to be Catholic now, and if you don't, you're going to die." Um, Not only that, but they, believe it or not, everywhere you see a Catholic church on a pueblo today, that used to be their kiva. That was their religious uh, place for the whole community. And then they destroyed it and put the Catholic Church right on top of it, thereby saying, "See what power we had over you." Um, so, it's just gone, from then. And you have to understand that in those days, uh, there was no getting along with people. It was like, you're conquered, and we're going to dictate to you, um, what you're going to believe. But secretly, a lot of them kept their traditions, and those traditions are coming back now.
Yeah, because I understand. Stan, do you want to go in on anything with that, or do you have anything to say?
Um, um, no, I think John pretty much covered what I
Yeah,
would say about it. Yeah.
yeah. I was just wondering too, that just like we were saying earlier, just more of us are connected now, and we're all being able to learn about this. Um, across the world, everyone's starting to be able to have information that's accessible, and learn about the history of Native American people and other indigenous people across the world, like Aborigines, and um, you know, also I think the good and the wisdom there, but also I think a lot of the bad um, that's happened is kind of like right now. It's just like right in front of all of us, since we all are all connected and we could look it up. And um, I think it I think talking about it and understanding it more kind of helps where we're at now, like the balance you guys were talking about. Our Supreme Court right now is pretty much a Catholic Supreme Court. I don't, I'm not trying to I don't want to try to bring you guys into politics. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. But I try to stay off of teams, and I try to stay out of belief, and I just kind of want to be team human and team all of us. But I start seeing one ideology, especially the one we were just talking about, that kind of swept through this, these beautiful lands, and took away this history from, or tried to take away this history from people, and convert them and kill them off. Um, I'm just wondering, like, with the laws that are being made now by the Supreme Court, and this ideology that's, you know, this is how it's going to be, when the majority of us are, you know, we don't believe that. So how can you make that decision for us? And I didn't know if, you know, I guess what I'm just trying to ask is, like, do you guys, what do you guys think about that? Like, what do you guys think about, um, and I don't know, I didn't ask if you guys had religious backgrounds or anything, so I don't intend to offend or anything, but do you have any thoughts about that at all?
We are, as a people, we are survivors. Um, we went through a program of extermination where the U.S. government actually physically and tried to exterminate Native Americans. And up in the Pacific Northwest, there was actually a bounty that you could claim if you killed a man, woman, or child. So um, this is just part of what's happened, and we accept that. You know, where are we now? What can we do to better our lives in the future? Is what we look at. Um, if you live in the past and you can't get away from the past, then you're a pretty sorry individual because you're doomed to just be angry all the
Yeah.
time. In my experience, even in Christianity, I found out that Native Americans are the only culture in the United States that you have to throw away your culture to be a Christian. You cannot live in both worlds.
Hmm.
I've had people tell me, "Oh, if you're a Christian, you can't go to a powwow and do anything over there." Yeah. And I'm going, "What part of the culture?" So I get into some pretty good debates with people about that.
Yeah.
Um, so I prefer to stay true to my culture, and everything else follows along. But I don't hold my ancestors on my Southern Cheyenne side. One of my ancestors was Chief White Antelope, who was at I don't know if you ever heard of the Sand Creek massacre,
No.
but what was he? A Methodist minister named Colonel John Shivington was in charge of the Second Colorado Volunteers. Band of Indians, Cheyenne and some Arapahoes, showed up at the governor's front door. They were peace chiefs, Black Kettle and White Antelope. They had met the President of the United States. They carried these big peace medals around their neck. And they went and said, "We're friendly. Where can we camp so that, you don't think we're enemies and come after us?" And they told them, "Go camp at Sand Creek and take your tallest lodgepole and fly an American flag from it, and below it fly a white flag, and that way we'll know you're friendly." So they went over there and set up camp. Colonel Shivington he had aspirations of being the governor of Colorado. So he decided that in those days you had to be an Indian fighter to get into political office. So he decided he was going to go out and fight Indians. And he took his Second Colorado Volunteers. He went near Sand Creek and surrounded a military fort over there and wouldn't let the cavalry soldiers there come out. He took the rest of his force, including howitzers, and went to Sand Creek and set up on them in the early morning. They fired howitzers, and they started. These are the ones that the cannon, like the old Civil War cannon, they'd fire shells that would explode,
Okay.
e- either on hitting the ground or explode in the air.
In here.
And so White Antelope actually came out of the teepee, and he was holding his hands up above his head, telling everyone, "Stop, stop, we're friendly," but they kept shooting at him. So he took his blanket, which was a Navajo chief's blanket, and wrapped it around himself, and he started singing his death song. You know it from a song done by Kansas called "Dust in the Wind." But he was singing "Only the Earth and Sky Last Forever,"
Mm-hmm.
and he was shot down right on the spot. Everybody that was killed, about 180, 190, mainly women and children, were completely hacked to pieces, and body parts were taken to to the Opera House in Denver and put on display.
Oh,
Um, it was horrifying. I mean, you can't imagine if you want to read about it, it's
Yeah.
uh, I mean, little kids being thrown up in the air and impaled on bayonets, babies taken by their hind legs and smashed against the trees, things like that. And so my ancestor was killed there. Uh, so, we're survivors. My great grandmother, actually, as a little girl, about 8 or 10 years old, when they were rounded up and forced marched to Bosque Redondo, which is about 200 miles, she escaped and she made it all the way back home. There were
Wow.
Mexican slavers looking for her. There were military patrols. There were ranchers. There were Utes that were all looking for any escapees. And she made it all the way back. She must have been anywhere from 8 to 10 years old. So I have that in my history.
Yeah.
So so yeah. But we look at it as lessons learned, but the prejudice still exists today.
Yeah.
And and um, they look at me, they say, "Oh, you got brown skin, so you're stupid," and we aren't, as
Uh,
as as you and your listeners have found out.
yeah.
So,
No,
oh, and
go
by the
ahead.
way, here's a little tidbit that we didn't talk about. We started talking about this idea of dimensions
Yeah.
and how they everything links up with that theory back in 2009. Back then, nobody was talking about this stuff. I think when we first started talking in 2011 or 12, we were the first ones to really bring it out in the forefront. And nowadays, you look at the TV, everybody's talking about parallel dimensions. But I'd like to think that we were one of the first to get into that.
That's awesome. No, yeah, and that's what, like we were saying earlier, like it's starting to become known, like, when, especially with the advances with quantum physics and stuff, they're starting to go, oh, wait a second, like, um, especially with entanglement and like all these different things. They're like, you'll see something like a post on a science journal or an article or whatever, and they start talking like this, starting to become more known that, hey, wait, this is this what we think is reality isn't really reality, and there's other realities, or what really is reality around us, we can't even sense. So, like, you know as a scientist, instead of being so dogmatic like some people think religions are, a scientist should be like, oh, I should look into this, instead of like, nah, it does. But now, I think more and more scientists are starting to look into it, and it's
Yeah, even the Large Hadron Collider did an experiment about 10 years ago um, to open a dimensional gate momentarily and send a message through.
wow, yeah. It's like, and but hopefully they're friendly, whoever sends a message back, right? I
Right.
Right,
don't,
right.
because
Yeah.
I know, Stan, I've heard you tell a story where a butcher knife came out of a knife block, like a butcher's block. It shot across you. This is when you were investigating like poltergeist activity, right? And it came across
Right.
and stabbed into a grapefruit right in front
That's
of you,
true.
and you were like, "Well, I've heard you tell this story, so sorry, listeners. I don't want to make you guys tell the same story over and over and over. Yeah,
But
you
that
should
did
go.
happen.
Yeah, that's how it happened. And
Yeah.
I remember the person there was super freaked out, and you were like, "Hey, don't give it, don't give it
Yeah.
any energy, because it might feed
Yeah.
it."
Yeah. True.
And um, I heard recently this guy talking about a theory of how there's, like, with frequency and other dimensions, there could be denser dimensions with denser, you know, energy and whatever, that can cross into ours, and then there's higher dimensions, and that's probably what people think are angels and demons, or even with time, there might be certain, uh, if the future, the present and the past, if they're all kind of connected and the same, that there could be future us coming back to check us out and be like, hey, what are they up to here? Or maybe change a few things, or maybe drop a few coins. I don't know.
Well,
I
you look at the new James Webb telescope and the images this device is capturing, and you get a glimpse of the vastness of the visible universe we have. And then you start talking about dimensions and different planes, and this now the idea of multiverses, so I don't think the human brain has the capability to grasp the vastness of time, space, and the universe. It's just too much.
Yeah, I mean, some of the paranormal stuff we're talking about, our minds can't even grasp. So try to grasp the universe. Like that's, it's or supreme being or God. Like you know, I've again, like I'm trying to be more open-minded now. I know there's some people believe in goddess, and some people believe there's just God, and then some people believe there's both working together. And um,
Yeah.
I'm open to all of it, but I think you know, what I've been feeling and thinking lately is just like I know love is real. I know that this is real. Us talking to each other, wanting to help people is real. Wanting to unify is real. Wanting truth is real, and wanting truth to come out is real. And so that all feels kind of like what we've tried to describe as God. You know, all creative, all positivity, love, unity. And so I have hope. I have hope for the future, and I hope whatever God is, that's what this disclosure is. It's us all kind of coming together and trying to figure this out, and realizing like the atrocities that happen to people, and also learning the wisdom that they can bring. And you know, I sorry I rant a lot. I'm just going in on a rant, but
No, that's fine. That's These bring up good talking points, and for us, the idea of a creator and of all things, and or these universe that we're talking about, and
mhm,
it's all very interesting, and like was brought up earlier about uh, different religions and their viewpoints of a creator, but for us, for me, I recognize there is positive and negative throughout these universes, and that what I've been taught about harmony, you can't have one without the other.
mm,
You can't. Uh, um, but it's a matter of finding that middle road and maintaining that harmony between what it is that's out there, and and to not live in fear, and to a big thing is to trust our gut instinct that we all have. I think we all have these special abilities that our creator gifted us with, to be able to heal our body, to heal our mind, to help others heal. And just like you said, the universal act of sharing love with your fellow man, that to care and to respect others.
mhm.
Well, we're all here. Um, we've got to get away from this idea of war and killing and murder, and get along with one another and be respect, instead of isolating people, and isolating and discriminating against people and their differences, welcoming that and looking at that as a gift from our creator. The different foods and music and the arts, and it's all a gift that we should be sharing. and be thankful for and grateful for.
That's so well put. I'm gonna cheers you to that again. So here I'm gonna give you a little.
Come on.
There you go.
Cheers.
That was well put.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, I know we're coming up on 2 hours here. We can wrap this up. Uh, let me just check if I had anything else to ask you guys, because I think or if you guys wanted to say, oh, that's one thing I want to talk about. Good thing I got my little trusty notes here. I know you guys
So,
are. Oh, go ahead. Good. What are you gonna say?
you know, Jon and I, at the time we've gone through our police academies and getting in law enforcement. For us, we were taught that there was one of two reasons or a combination of those reasons why you get into law enforcement. And that is to help others and or to protect others that can't protect themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was unique that our chief ranger at the time, his philosophy that you're here to help people regardless of what you may not believe in this, you may not understand this, but you will be there for these people to help them and listen to them. And that's essentially what we did. We didn't go out looking for this stuff, even though we had experiences prior to law enforcement that would be deemed paranormal or supernatural. But the thing is, as you look at all of this encompassing things that are referred to as paranormal, in reality, if you go back and start looking at the history and civilizations of mankind, these things have always been there. And so in reality, we shouldn't be calling it paranormal. It is very normal within our human experience and human existence. So I personally want to thank you for doing what you do, because you're playing a critical role to bring this information out to the masses, to 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 everyone. Just like what we said in our presentations, that you're not crazy, you're not, uh, you know, um, these people have these experiences. We may not be able to explain it or to be able to analyze it from all angles and say it's this or that or falls into this category, but it does happen. And sometimes across, it could be a 10-year-old or it could be an 85-year-old that has a similar experience, and it can be across the globe. So we just need to be more open-minded and accepting and willing to learn. So thank you.
Thanks for saying that. I've shared this before in other episodes, but I always get really anxious and nervous before I do these things, and almost up to the day I'm like, I feel like, should I cancel, because I'm just I don't I I've been on camera before, but I don't if it's a joke or something, or if it's something funny, it's easier for me, but talking about serious things, it's it's hard to get it out in the public. But I realize, like, I'm learning and other people are learning, and I would never get to talk to you guys, I don't think, unless I would have hit you up this way. um
One thing too is that we've just met at this point in person and talking,
mhm.
but as we get into these conversations and talking, it's 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 unique because it's almost like as though we know you and have known you for years. We're
Yeah.
able to connect and talk about these things freely. There is no barriers with that, and me and Jon have found that globally, in these meetings and conferences and talking to people, we meet these people and it's like we've known them for forever, and it's a unique experience, an almost strange kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that the you know they they call it the UFO, Twitter or the UFO community or whatever, but it's just so much bigger than UFOs. But like
Yeah,
I've
it
noticed
is.
that there's a lot of trolls on there that people try to spread negativity and stuff. But it's
You'll
so
always
easy.
have that. You'll
Yeah,
always have that.
but it's so easy to find the people that are true and just want to like spread love and positivity and unity and like just talk about things and try to figure it out and bring what they have that's different to the table than what other people don't, have. And it's really like it's cool to see that and it gives me hope for the future, you know. And so, you know,
Well, John and I aren't out here to try to tell people you need to believe this way or that way. We can only convey either what we've experienced firsthand and or what these people that we've assisted with the investigations, what their experience is,
mhm.
and or the evidence that's there. Um, we're not there to try to tell people, oh, you have to believe this way or that way. We try to present what we have, and then hopefully they will take that and other information that's out there in the world and make a really good solid uh, decision for themselves and how they carry themselves.
And that's great. And I think that, you know, um, you know, talking again what John brought up is I was actually gonna it was one of my questions, but then John just said it about how you guys don't like to use the word believe. And I've just started doing that a few years ago too. And I saw you say that in one of your interviews and it really sparked. I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool because like that's what I've been telling people lately is like, I know what I know, or like I want data and I want information about something. Like it's fine if I don't understand it, but I'm not believing like the fact that I saw a sphere in the sky that I told you guys. Some people might tell me, "Oh, you were drunk." No, I
Yeah,
wasn't drinking then. Oh,
yeah,
it was a plane. It was
yeah.
something. It had no wings. It was silent. It was up there. I can't explain it. I'm not saying it was an alien. I'm not saying it was a time traveler. I don't know what the hell it was, but I know
Well,
I saw it. You
well,
know?
Yeah.
obviously, it was a Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, that's
uh,
that's good to bring that up actually. What do you guys think about that? Because for me, that was very unnerving because I'm going, so wait, you guys are letting a Chinese spy balloon come through Canada, which is one of the Five Eyes, over Maelstrom um, Air Force Base, which holds our nukes, and then travel across the country, you
and
know.
wait till it leaves and then shoot the damn thing down. Go
Uh,
figure. The other thing, though, I look at that, and to my knowledge, uh, China owns half of this damn country anyway. So them having a
it's
balloon up there is
it's
maybe
got a
it's
point. That's you got a point there.
Yeah,
You got a point.
they're just looking at their what they own over here and making sure the land status is still the
Yeah,
same.
yeah.
it could be.
Yeah, that's no, that's a good point. I mean, yeah, it's strange, but again, like the what we get, even with UAP, the the reactions or the responses we get from the Pentagon, it's always going to be something where you're kind of like, well, I understand they have to be secretive about stuff, but like again, we're not dumb. So like just
Well,
tell it straight to us just a little bit, please.
one of the things is with the advent of internet and your cell phones and cameras and video,
Yeah.
governments aren't as easily capable of manipulating and disinformation, covering up when you and I can share information in real time
Yeah.
globally,
Yep.
you know? So I think that's one of the key things with it coming out that these things do exist,
Hmm.
whether it's hauntings or objects in the sky or even the Bigfoot stuff. There's stuff out there now that our governments can't hide and cover up. just like they did with Roswell and all of the other incidents like that, where they could go in and threaten people. We'll shoot you and your whole family if you talk about this, and they can't do that with everybody, you know.
Well, and to that point too, even aside from or in addition to the paranormal stuff, like when George Floyd was he
Yeah.
got killed, and
Yeah.
the whole world saw it,
Right.
because before the whole world wouldn't see that, but then there were protests all like globally, like this is wrong. So
Yeah.
we're connected now in a way, like you were just saying, like we're connected in a way now where we can be, I think we're all kind of waking up slowly and being like, I
Right.
want to take care of each other.
Right.
Like we should take care of each other. What's going
When
on
we
here?
look at something like that, we know in our heart that that is wrong.
Yeah.
That a man should not treat another fellow man in that manner.
Yep.
And so, like you said, people are understanding that, hey, I'm going to go out and speak about this. I'm going to go out and say, give my viewpoint that, hey, we shouldn't be doing this kind of thing, whether it's that or the war in Ukraine or
Yep.
these different atrocities that are going on.
And like what Jon said, when the guy spat in his face,
Yeah.
it shows
Yeah.
Jon's character that that's who you want in law enforcement. You want
Right.
somebody like Jon, you want somebody
Yeah.
like Stan. If something happens like that, you realize like this person came from somewhere different than you did. They have a
Right.
crazy history. They could be a druggie. They could have,
Abuse.
They could be having a bad day. Their mind could be going wrong. They could be hyped up on adrenaline. But like Jon could have kneeled on that guy's neck, or Jon could have beat the shit out of him or whatever. But it's that control. And I think that love for, your fellow human, that even though if you wanted to bop the guy or whatever, I need to control myself, and with great, your authority as a law enforcement, that's great responsibility, and
Well, we're
yeah.
carrying the ability to take another life on us.
Yep.
And we've been vested that authority, just like what you said, to take a life, but to protect the life, these kind of things. And so, yeah, there's the ultimate responsibility that's put on you to be able to go out and do your job, but do it in such a way that your goal is to protect life, not end life.
Yep. Yeah, that's so well put. And uh God, I could talk to you guys forever. Let's can I let's end on something paranormal. How about this? If that's cool with you guys.
Sure.
My dad actually recently told me he's watching some Bigfoot thing on might be the History Channel or whatever. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, cool, like that's rad. I think it's interesting, but I don't know what it is or whatever. But I know you guys have done Bigfoot cases. So, and I remember in that episode on Netflix, uh, you know, I think Jon was saying that you guys were tracking these footprints, and the stride was like as long as like 5 feet or 6 feet or something. So like this is definitely not a human, and if someone's gonna like make this a hoax, that's an elaborate hoax to like take a lot of time to you like it would it's ridiculous, like if someone would take that amount of time to make this a hoax, um could be a
Well, in some
possibility.
of these cases, Jon and I have we found that very thing, that it was hoaxed.
Okay.
I mean, there's cases I've done where there was supposedly locally they made a big deal about this thing that was called the howler, and this person that brought this information forward supposedly had a recording of this, And so I had asked, can I get a copy of that recording, audio recording? Oh yeah, yeah. Provided the information and the recording. One of my sources in that field, we went back and listened to it, and he was able to say, I recognize that audio. And he went back in his audio files years and years before and found that exact audio.
Mm.
And so I took it and was able to say, you know, can you tell me about this, and play it back for him and tell him where it originally came from. And so there's
Yeah.
those kind of cases where, you know, people are trying to hoax and trying to, for whatever reason.
And
And
I want people to understand that too, because a lot of these paranormal, like aside from Bigfoot, but a lot of these paranormal investigations, there were times where you guys were like, "Oh no, this was just this, or this was just that." Like you guys aren't going in going, "Oh, it is this, or it is a
you
ghost, it
can't.
is Bigfoot, it is this," you know.
I'll let John talk about criminal investigation and how that was adapted, and if he can elaborate.
Yeah, in criminal investigations, and both of us are investigators, what you do is you let the evidence lead you. Say there's a car accident. Well, I would go and look at the skid marks, and I would look at all the evidence, the crush damage, the hot shock on the lights, different things like that. I would come back and I would develop an opinion based on my ability to know what those things mean. And then I start talking to witnesses and seeing if their statements matched with what I was seeing as evidence on the roadway. We do something similar. We collect the evidence. We make sure that everything's up and up. We vet the people that are talking about it, and then we let the evidence fall where it will. Whether we want it to be that way or not,
Mhm.
we follow the evidence. And
We had cases where law enforcement officers go into an investigation and they have the idea that because of their ego, oh, I'm an expert. I already know what happened here. And here's, you can't do that. You can't do that. You got to collect the evidence.
Yeah. And uh, so with a Bigfoot case that was not a hoax, is there one that stands out? Because I know you guys investigated, I don't know, several or more, but like, is there one that really stands out to you? I know that it might be the one that was on that episode, um, where you guys found the hair, I think in the barbed wire, and you tested it, and it was like there was no animal that, like no animal came up. They're like, wait, what is this? You know?
I'll let John
that
talk on it.
that one was one of the more interesting ones
Okay.
because it had 30 witnesses.
Oh
They went to
wow.
the 30 witnesses went to the local police department and they asked for assistance on investigating this. The lieutenant that spoke to them laughed and he says, "Ha, ha, ha, I wonder how much these people have had to drink."
Yeah.
And so we got called out instead, and they said, "We want nothing to do with the police department. Can you come out?" And we sent 6 rangers out there to do a 2-night and 3-day investigation using forward-looking infrared systems and night vision. Um, but there was a different one where a Bigfoot reported that it walked up to a corral, grabbed a sheep, tucked it under its arm, and walked off with it. And in that one, it went up a really steep slope. You would have to be on your hands and feet to get up this slope. And it walked up it just like nothing. And again, 5 foot stride, heel to heel. If I was to do a 5 foot stride, I'd be doing the splits and 21-inch footprint.
And I want people
That
to understand what you're saying right now too, because you are trained. You are trained in tracking this shit. So like this is not, yeah, like you got to understand people, like this is serious. This is weird as hell. Like This is
Yeah,
Jon. Jon. Wait, Stan, did you investigate this with Jon, or was this?
yeah, we
I've
were both
Yeah.
had
there.
Okay, you're both. So
I've had a lot of different Bigfoot cases over the years, but this was again, like he said, it was one uh, that stood out.
yeah, I don't want to cut you off, Jon, but I was just saying, like, I just want people to understand, like, with your guys' expertise and like experience with tracking and stuff, like just tracking these footprints, like it would be so weird to try to hoax that and almost impossible, like you're saying, going up the steep the steep hill or whatever. Like, it's like, how would you
Yeah,
hoax that?
and
you know?
and if you saw pictures from the investigation, you would see pin flags going up this steep slope, marking out where the print was. And it's just you track this thing and you go, man, that's a big footprint. I mean, that'd be bigger than Shaquille O'Neal's feet.
Yeah,
And and you look at it, you go, it's right there. You could see it plain as day. You could see the
yeah.
toes and everything else. And I don't know. I don't think I'd want to meet him, in the dark forest somewhere.
And didn't they
But
disappear? It just disappears, right? That most of the feet,
yeah,
they just it'll be like it'll just stop in the middle of nowhere, and then that's what made you guys go, wait, these things aren't living. They might not be living here. They might be just
yeah,
crossing in and out of
it
dimensions or something.
disappeared. It disappeared in what we call trackable ground,
Okay.
which means that if it would have taken another step, it would have left a footprint. If it would have jumped to the side, either direction, there would be some, evidence of it. And when you find something like that where a track ends, what you start doing is you start to spiral out. And what you're doing is they call it cutting sign,
Okay.
and you're looking for any evidence, even just pebbles pushed into the soil
Mm,
that shows that something was on top of it. Um, in the case of smugglers, you're looking. Uh, they could be wearing shag rug carpet on their feet, and so what you look for is these little fibers that are shiny that are in the ground. You cannot walk over ground and not leave some evidence that you went through there. And in this case, it just disappeared. So we backtracked it the other direction. And so, you have uh, egress and you have exit. And in the egress side, the tracks appear in trackable ground. They're if it had come further in, it would have left tracks behind it. But
hmm.
there's no tracks. They just start. So
So weird.
and I've talked to residents, Native Americans up in Quinault, uh, Washington State, Quinault Reservation, and one of them told me that he saw a Bigfoot up there that was peeking out from behind a tree, and it was up right next to the beach. And as he watched it, he says this thing just faded out right in front of his eyes,
Oh,
just like it just disappeared.
so weird. And
So
it,
that tells me it went somewhere, you
yeah.
know.
What like it's you know there might be like we were talking about before. There might be a dimension that's right next to this one. I mean, there could be infinity like amounts of dimensions, but like there might be one that's right next to us that maybe there's these doorways in that dimension and they could just like walk into here and take off and it's normal for them, but for us it's like, what, that's weird, you know but we don't know how to explain it yet because we haven't looked into it enough.
Right.
And and that's why it's like you guys are almost the pioneers of this stuff because you know you started looking into it and you got other people curious, and now you know a lot of academia is curious, and now scientists are curious about it, and um
And the military is curious
the
about it.
military.
You know,
Oh yeah,
And
they want to see if they can weaponize it.
oh
So,
yeah, I'm sure, always, right? Always
yep.
has to be a weapon in some way. um Well, I mean, I'm gonna let you guys go. I don't want to, but it's it's been great. And I know you guys are each writing a book, and you've been contacted to write a book. And I told my wife about it today, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's awesome!" And she's like, "Wait, are they writing it together or separately?" And I think they're writing it separately. And she's like, "Why?" And I'm like, "Well, I'll talk to them about that." But like, um, I just think as a just take my input as it is. But like, I would love to get you guys both in one book, but I would also like to read your individual books. So if you guys are just doing individual books now, maybe the third would be both of you guys together, kind of like where you're at now and what's going on. I don't know. Can you guys talk
And
a
that
little
may
bit about
happen.
that?
That
Yeah.
may happen. Yeah, they're individual at this point, but
Okay.
Jon has a unique story to tell,
Hmm.
a very complex and vast story to tell. And I have a story, my how I got into law enforcement and what led to these paranormal investigations. So, but like you suggest, Jon and I continue dealing with these type of investigations, even though we're not in law enforcement or whatever. When people come up to us asking for help, we're going to do that, and especially uh, in this field of study or whatever, we we are going to try to help people the best we can.
Well, I
And
think that's I look up to you guys because of that, and I respect you guys because of that. And I think any young people watching this, man or woman, like you if you want to become law enforcement, listen to these guys, listen to their words of wisdom and how they look at the world and that sense of balance and how you're supposed to treat each other. I think I think these two men right here are, you know, they're 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 what you should look up to become in law enforcement. So um just like
thank you for that.
I look forward to reading your guys' book whenever you're finished. It's a big task. I understand it's a big task to write a book.
Yeah,
So I,
it
I look
is.
forward to reading that. But
Thank you for that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
yeah, and do you guys have anything else to add, or is I can let you guys have? I know it's probably getting late where you are, but anything
I,
else to say?
I, Captain, the engines are overheating.
Like my grandpa, he used to do a Scotty impersonation for me all the time, and he just passed away a few years ago. And
Oh God.
me and my wife were just talking about that, and that just
Yeah.
brought such nostalgia. So thank you for doing that. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Trekkie for life. So um, thank you so much, guys. Have a great rest of your evening, and maybe when uh, you're ready to release the book, or even if you guys want to come on again and talk about anything you're involved with, I'd love to have you guys on again and catch up. And this has been great. So thank you so much.
We really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Stan.
Sounds good.
Thanks, John. Have a good night.
Okay.
All
You
right.
All
too.
right.
Good
Bye,
night.
guys.
Bye.